Chapter 1. Another restless night. Daniel McNeil thought this as he sat in his home, which was located in small-town Illinois. The past 2 weeks had been some of the hardest he's experienced in all 26 years of his life. Catherine McNeil, his beloved sister, was taken by forces unknown. All he knew was that they had chosen the wrong family to mess with. Daniel and his sister grew up rough, and a father that was cold and distant, but strict and authoritative. They learned to deal with trouble from a very young age. Old Dad seemed to always be looking out behind his back. He used to work for an organization, one that kept bad things from hurting good people. But when that group fell, Dad was petrified that bad things would be out to get him and his family. That's when he taught his children to deal with the hardest things life had to throw at them. Together, Daniel and Catherine went through years of tough training, living rough, fighting off the elements, and anything else their father thought to put in front of them. It never came, though. That battle their father thought would be so close. It couldn't have been any farther. Daniel and Catherine tried to live their best, normal lives after Dad, getting through school and finding homes, till one day, everything came back to haunt the both of them. A few weeks before, Daniel was packing lunch in the kitchen of his house. He was lucky enough to get the place. After months of searching, he finally found something affordable. It might not have been perfect, but it made Daniel proud. It gave him a feeling of contentment. He had made it, a normal life that he had dreamed out for so long. He was planning to visit his sister today. Her life was going slightly different, a series of bad breakups and overwhelming mistakes. Catherine tried her best, but after Dad and Daniel left, she didn't seem to know what to do. She didn't know how to function. It seemed like what Dad had put her through made her even more susceptible to that invisible threat. That's what Daniel thought of it, at least. Nevertheless, he tried to support his sister and made sure that she had the damnedest chance of a good life. For a moment, he was blinded by his thoughts. Daniel grabbed the neatly packed lunch and made his way out the front door, off towards his past and his future. Not that far away, Catherine was staying in a rundown apartment in the bad part of the city. It wasn't what she dreamed of, but it was what she prepared for. She stared up at the dilapidated building she called home. It was a shame those repairs fell through a few months back, she thought. A few people were standing outside when she walked to the outside stairwell. One of them called out to her, "Hey, baby, can I show your fine ass a good time?" She was used to this from the people who lived around here, but it didn't make it any less awkward. This man, however, began to approach her. He grabbed for her shoulder. In a split second, she grabbed one of his hands and broke his finger. The man fell back onto the ground. "You bitch!" he yelled out as he clutched his finger. Catherine just smiled to herself and walked up the stairwell. In the distance, a man in a long black trench coat topped with a black fedora stood silently watching where the commotion was just happening. He pulled a cigarette to his lips and a phone to his ear. "We might need a few more men on this one," the man said to the person on the phone before hanging up. He chuckled to himself for a second. This moment would be sweet and enjoyable for him, something that he had been waiting for years to see. It's now right around the corner. Satisfied, the man slowly walked off down the road, as if he had the confidence that the job will be done right. Catherine finally made it up to her floor. The old building stretched 14 stories, but without an elevator, it was certainly a climb. She caught her breath for a moment, thinking about how miserable it is to live on the top floor. Next, she grabbed around in her purse until she finally found her key. She slipped it into the lock and swung her apartment door open. It was pitch black inside. She remembered opening the curtains that morning to let the light in. She knew someone had been there. Suddenly, a fist sliced through the darkness, coming towards Catherine. She quickly redirected it, and the man punched into the nearby drywall instead. Taking advantage of this, Cat gives him a quick hit to the back of the head to knock him out. Meanwhile, dozens of men rush up the stairs of the building. They begin to reach Cat's apartment in moments and advance on her. One man falls, then another, but it's just too much. Eventually, one of them landed a hit on Catherine. She fumbled for a moment. That allowed another to get his head as well. The cycle repeated until Cat was down on the floor of her apartment. "Pick her up," the leader of the mysterious group told another. They pick her unconscious body up and leave the place in a hurry. "We got her," the leader says into her earpiece. Daniel soon arrived with lunch. They didn't get to see each other too often anymore. He was just glad that she invited him to come over. "Floor 14, room 2. That's what she had told him over the phone the previous night. "Just give it a knock when you get here," she said. Daniel thought it had been pretty casual considering how long it had been since they'd seen each other, but he didn't want to bring it up. He gave that old door a knock, which caused it to come open. Weird. Daniel pushed it all the way and searched for a light in the dark room. He found one. The apartment was suddenly filled with light. There were broken pieces of glass and wood, mixed in with several different spots of blood. He quickly began to search the place for any signs of his sister. "Cat! Cat! Are you here?" Daniel called out. There was no answer. He stopped for a moment to calm down. He stared at his surroundings. Daniel knew that he couldn't lose his sister, so after a second he walked out of the apartment with the determination to save her and stop whoever did this. That's where his journey began. For the past couple of weeks, Daniel had been trying to find a specific someone, Kimberly Schneel. She was a world-class hacker and a childhood friend, courtesy of Daniel's father. Charles might have been tough, but he had good connections. Unfortunately, it was hard to find Kimberly. She had disappeared. Daniel had been working tirelessly to find her, and that night he finally did. It was time to finish what had started years ago, but this time would be different.